one of the main important difficulties is that we can imagine that we are the same. We belong to the same view of the world. And when we are speaking of the same humanity, we can suppose that when we see the world from the same point of view, but in the fact, we belong to different understanding of the world. So the question is really a co-elaboration because we don't see the world with the same glasses. And so how can we collaborate if we are not listening one another with, we can say, opposed view about what is the good future for one another. So in a certain way, we must be innovative when we are working all together, and not to be simplistic. So that's, I would like to listen to you about that.
That's why my point of departure is the end vision, the apocalypse. Because I believe the apocalyptic literature is present in all the narratives of religion. The chaos, the destruction. We have it in Genesis, and they have that in other sacred texts. My point is that, yes, they have different narratives and discourses, but if we take it from the perspective of destruction, then that levels off. It's like spirituality can be a leveling of all these differences because of the commonality in God. But destruction or death can also be a leveling of approaches and boundaries in our respective narratives, even our respective texts. So, however we do recognize, that's why I said, a puzzle of different shapes. It is important whatever shape you are of that religion is in order to complete the whole picture. So it's important that the point of departure is that, as some people, point of departure in the dialogue is spirituality, which levels also. That in all our narratives we have that, though different narratives, but nevertheless you have the convergences both in life as well as in death, as well as in new earth or new heaven, as well as destruction. So I take the perspective of destruction and death, this apocalypse. That's why I started with the great meltdown, but the extremism, the destroy and kill, and then the migrants that we did with war or the welcome. That how our sacred texts address this, how our religions address this. That's why we are able to draw the line. In your own tradition, in your own narrative, can you draw the line? Say, for example, in Christianity, or in Buddhism, or in Hinduism, or in Islam, can they draw the line? The ISIS cannot draw the line. The traditional theology cannot draw the line. Of course, they can draw the line heresy and orthodoxy. But this time around, it is not on the doctrine, but in the destruction of the planet, and then we all perish, something like that. I don't know.
Yes, but maybe we have not, maybe I'm sure, we have not the same line. For example, we can see in different traditions that it's normal that the world is going to its own destruction. It's like a cyclical period. So after the destruction of the world, there will be a new world.
That's why we have the Ark of Noah.
We can even disagree of the question of the destruction of the world. So the question is how we are, and from the point where we are, what we have to do. And I think it's like Paul said also, it's for us as Christians, we know or we want that when there is war and destruction, when there is division, the only way to respond is to build unity. We cannot use war to struggles against war. We cannot use divisions to struggles against division. We have to build all together unity and justice, by justice. So that's our deep understanding of how is God acting and how we have to collaborate with God to create his world.
Professor Wong, would you like to share your thoughts? Okay, Father Petragos defined the third one of the evangelical vows, obedience, as pag-uusap or dialogue. So I was just reminded by organizer, let us give more time to the audience also to ask questions to our speakers. So I'll be obedient. Mag-usap tayo. That's dialogue na. So let us now open the floor to the audience to ask questions to our speakers. Let's start. Yes, please.
I'm Father John, yeah. Actually, I had a course in psychology of terrorism, and we had an extensive discussion on this one. And one thing that caught my attention, especially with the author Bonger, they were trying to debunk the idea that terrorism is rooted on poverty, and what else? That they have a mental disorder because of the idea of coming from a Western lens, perhaps. That's why they look at
that as an idea. So when you look at terrorism as a mental health problem or as a root cause of poverty, then you attack poverty, you attack the psychosis. But unfortunately, they're trying to claim that they're saying that actually it's more than that. Because many of them, they have this sense of they're trying to find meaning. And as like us Christians, we are searching for meaning. And somehow, they found that meaning among especially the radicals, meaning in what they do, and so they can give up their lives, they can commit suicide for the sake of what they believe, because they go to heaven. Or they will have several virgins after that. And I just wonder, in your experience, I think, Father, I celebrated Mass with you in Cotabato. We were together. I don't know if that was you. But anyway, I don't know if that is your experience in Cotabato or wherever you are at. Is poverty a factor? Or maybe a mental health problem is a factor? Because I know the studies that they conducted were not in the Philippines. So I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
We are now coming up with the research on extremism in Southern Philippines, and it's indeed very revealing that you see the disconnect between the rise of extremism and poverty. Most of the contributing element to the rise of extremism in the South is recruitment. That means they actively recruit young people to the cause. And the leadership of the extremists are indeed coming from elite university. That means they have money. Sons coming from big family. The Mote is big family also in Lanao. They're the deprived family. The one is responsible in the bombing in Davao are people from Cotabato that are son of respected leader and respected rebel of the Moro National Liberation Front. You are surprised why they joined the ISIS rather than own Liberation Front. So even our classic definition of the resurgence of extremism coming from poverty is no longer valid. If you look even at the Al-Qaeda phenomenon, Bin Laden is Al-Muhandis belonging to the big family of Bin Laden in Saudi Arabia. They can give $1 million to Harvard. And the one who took over Bin Laden is Dr. Sarkawi, a medical doctor. So similarly, you can enumerate in the leadership of this extremist group that they are not coming from the classic understanding of poverty. That is a great big discovery on our part also in this research. So, connected to, yes, there is poverty. Yes, it's the poorest province. Yes, but below and behold, they're not the graduates of the traditional madrasa, even in Indonesia. They're not graduate of Nahdlatul Ulama or the Muhammadiyah because they are the mainstream Muslim. But they are the graduates of those madrasas that are the fringes. No, not in the, that's why, and then these are private madrasa and madaris that you have to pay. So there is money involved also. So that poverty is now being debunked.
Okay, thank you, Father. Still have time for a couple of questions. Father Chris?
Thank you for your presentations. I'm just wondering because, for example, Father June started this conversation by inviting us to set our mind on the apocalyptic, perhaps model. I would call it model, but yeah, based on my limited knowledge, apocalyptic model is actually but the prophetic model in a bleak situation of persecution, by which those who are in the apocalyptic state will think that in the end, God will put an end to all these enemies. So we go to the idea of a common enemy, and that's why we can easily unite when there is a common enemy. That's why, for example, in the issue of environmental degradation and problem, and in the midst of global warming, we are being invited to build or recreate the ark. But my question is, would it be possible to recreate the ark even if there is no impending catastrophe? I mean, we just all together build the ark and ride on it.
Thank you. Before you answer the question of Father Chris, I would like to ask Sister, and you will be the last person to ask the question.
Sister Maria Corazon Manalo. I'm a daughter of Charity, the sister of the Vincentians, the bitter half of the Vincentians, an inactive member of Takateo, superintendent of the Daughters of Charity Schools. First of all, I'd like to commend all the three speakers for the clarity of their presentation, given the shortness of their time. The questions I had on the first day were answered by you because you provided the context, the data, and also the definitions that made it clearer for me to understand the 3-day sessions. Professor Thierry Corrao, I commend you for your English, given the fact that you're French. It was very clear, and you're coming from a perspective from the head, which made it clear for me to internalize what you're trying to say. Professor Pohang, you presented the data about Asian religions that could have united all of us, and yet the religions became instruments of division. And you were challenging us to how to make up our Asian religions be instruments of peace, and in a sense, to be collaborative. I am also very amazed by Professor Eliseo Mercado, whom I met last year when I gave the talk, but he was one of the members. And I understand very well where you're coming from, because our sisters had been displaced also in Marawi. But because of this, I found the answers to my questions since yesterday. My only curiosity is, why did you change your mantra, Professor Mercado? Thank you.
Father, kindly answer the question very well.
Okay. Now was the narrative to me represent only three things instead of answering all of them. Okay. Number one is catastrophe, destruction. As we have said also, there will be new life that will come after the cleansing and the destruction. And the third is the preservation of all the species. In their differences, they all come to the ark. So the difference, the uniqueness of each one are enclosed in the ark. And there's a new life, new future, a new vision for the creation. So that's my starting point, the catastrophe in the global warming, in the climate change. You see. It is not the end, but the new beginning. So that's my answer. Sure. And why did I change my mantra? Because the usual mantra, as I said, as you have said, in the FABC is dialogue with culture, dialogue with religions, and dialogue with the poor. In the Vatican, as well as in the W Council of Churches, the mantra will be, of course, dialogue of life, dialogue of religious values and holiness, and the dialogue of the doctrine among all the theologians. Triple. But this time I will follow the patriarch of Constantinople. It is, we have a common future, save the earth, common species, see, preserve the earth, and we can do this together in our uniqueness and differences. Hence, the word I use is collaborate. Perhaps I will think of another word. You see, each in our own differences, uniqueness of our literature as well as our sacred texts and religion contribute in the saving of the planet and human species and the whole creation. And the third very important is that the emphasis really that don't level the differences, don't level it off. These are important, and this is our individual narrative, but don't think you have a new hermeneutics of your text and your religion. You have to change your religion. It cannot go on as is with this catastrophe. So our church should change radically. Our religious change. See, if it will not change, it will lead to destruction.
Okay, thank you very much, Father. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have to end this conversation now. This formal conversation, but dialogue continues, informally. So after this formal conversation, we will take a break. We will have also our informal dialogue and conversation. But please let us give our speakers a round of applause.